From the Edge of the Web studios, here's what we're looking at this week.
All right, hey, out of the gate, we wanted to talk about, and this is happening a lot, and you got to pay attention to it. From Politico, Margaret Harding McGill writes, Google to pay up to $200 million to settle an FTC YouTube investigation. Google has actually agreed to pay up between $150 and $200 million to resolve this investigation into YouTube over alleged violations of a children's privacy law. According to a person familiar with the matter, the FTC voted 3-2 along party lines to approve the settlement, sending it over to the Justice Department as a part of the review process. The anonymous person confirmed the settlement is the latest move from the FTC meant to crack down on Silicon Valley privacy violations. Facebook last month paid $5 billion with a B to resolve an expansive agency probe into its data practices. The industry has seen more broadly, fortunes soar in Washington, and President Donald Trump and associates, the Democratic presidential candidates and lawmakers of both parties have been pillory tech for a number of years, actually, to be able to look at privacy flaps, issues in privacy law. And we certainly saw that over the course of the last 2 years, especially whenever the fiasco with the data regarding the candidates, or I should say the election of 2016. Anyway, I want to turn it back over to Marie. What are your thoughts about these continued investigations against Google and a number of top-tier tech firms? What's going on here?
So this is something that, I mean, it's important to me as I have little children, and they do a lot, and so I have found it hasn't been too bad lately. I mean, a few years ago when they first started using YouTube, I remember there was something about Dora the Explorer,
right.
And it wasn't ads, but it was the YouTube content was horrendous. It was not Dora. It was people that were using, they were getting these kids, and then it was all this adult stuff that was in these videos. And I have not seen that recently. So in terms of ads, I think everything that they can be doing to make it so that it's safer for children is good. I mean, I don't see how anybody could argue against that, right?
No, absolutely not. And I think this is just its time is here, and I think the government has been slow to affect certain investigations, what have you. We really don't want that on a regular basis. We want the industry to police itself and self-right itself, right? As opposed to constantly being, it could be perceived as attacked by the government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, YouTube's a little bit out of my area of expertise beyond we use it. But yeah, I mean, I think this whole situation is, there's so many children that spend so much time on YouTube. So we need to be making the web safe for our kids for sure.
Absolutely. Now, is there a rating system yet that we can hold on to inside of YouTube? I don't think there is. I mean, there's YouTube for kids, but boy, it'd be fantastic to be able to have some sort of, I'm not a big proponent of regulation. I truly am not. But I mean, in light of these type of things, you really do need to have something that parents can trust, because I mean, literally, I've got 4 kids and they're on YouTube day and night, and that's not really a good parenting role. But hey, when they're on there, you don't know what they're coming up against. Even the Fortnite views of people playing other video games, which I really can't understand. But even those are somewhat pretty adult, and you don't really have that type of control over what content your kids are seeing regularly, right?
Yeah, one of the things that I did was teach my children how to close the YouTube ad. And so when there's an AdSense ad on YouTube, there's a button that says, stop seeing this ad, or why am I seeing this ad? And so my children know when something feels uncomfortable, or if they've seen, they still have to see it though.
Right.
And then they tell me about it and they say, look, I clicked the button to stop see this ad. And maybe that's why we don't get, we don't tend to get ads that are annoying to my children or scary in terms of content.
Right.
So I think it's just like anything else. I mean, Fortnite, gosh, we could talk the rest of the show about it.
I saw. Go ahead.
My first solo win this weekend was great.
I caught that on Twitter. Yeah.
And yet, I know some of my children's parents are like, what, you let your children play this game that's full of killing? And it's a great game. I love it. I mean, there are aspects that I have to teach my children about that. We don't run around talking about guns to everybody and,
Right.
and whatnot. But I think the point that I'm trying to make is the people who need to police what our children see are us.
That's right.
And so if there's anything that, my philosophy is not to completely protect my children from what they see, but to show them how to understand what is something they shouldn't be seeing. And, but I don't know. I mean, that's my philosophy on parenting. And again, I think anything that we can be doing or that Google can be doing or even the FTC to make it safer is probably a good thing. And it's going to annoy some of the advertisers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The parents are the critical role here, and you cannot give it to a regulatory committee. You can't give it to the industries. You have to take it, and your place in the entire ecosystem. I know my place in the Fortnite ecosystem is literally I'm giving my kids their allowance and they're spending it with V-Bucks and they're getting their skins. And I say again, I'm channeling my father. It's like throwing the money out the window. But some of those skins are very, very cool, right?
I like my panda skin. It's the only thing I've spent money on other than the battle pass in Fortnite. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's challenges that come up. And so when my kids started playing Fortnite, we brought up all sorts of things. They actually are better at doing their homework now since they have this motivation on video games. And
Yep.
So there can be pros and cons in everything. And, it's like I said, I love Fortnite. I'm not the typical demographic for the game, though.
We certainly keep on going after those solos because those are nice trophies to have. All right, hey, we certainly want to give you a heads up on continued signs from Google regarding their ranking algorithm changes from Barry Schwartz, and he is cranking out so much content all the time. It's fantastic, and it's tough to keep up with him. But over at SEO Roundtable, and if you haven't come across with that, we highly recommend you go check out what Barry's saying on a regular basis. His post here just recently, he said that there are signs of a Google search ranking update touching down late August 28th through August 29th. There's also been some forum chatter with the SEO industry and rank checking tools. So this has been a pretty long thread on his post, but you've also contributed in this as well, Marie. So give us a quick take. We're going to certainly going to unpack the entire algorithm concept here in the show, but what's your quick take on the August 28th and 29th changes that are being reported?
So I think the tricky thing to determine here is whether this is an algorithm update or whether it's due to the long weekend. Being Labor Day weekend, a lot of things change, right?
Absolutely.
And I think people understand that patterns of traffic change. So if you're a website that has to do with anything to do with back to school or back to school clothing, or things are going to look different on the long weekend, on the Labor Day weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what a lot of people don't realize too is that rankings can change depending on what's happening for the times as well. We've seen that with Christmas, right? That all of a sudden Amazon starts ranking really well, and it's not that you're doing anything wrong against Amazon. It's just that Google has figured out that, the majority of people who are searching to buy this product at this time of year want to end up on Amazon. And so what we're seeing in our data now, to be fair, we did not work yesterday. It was a long weekend. And so we haven't done a full analysis. But it looks like just a normal tweak, I would say. And what I mean by that is we know that Google is announcing these core updates. The August 1st, 2018 was probably the most obvious example of that.
Right.
Most recent one, June 3rd of 2019, they announced those. There's been nothing announced by Google about anything happening over the weekend. So I think it's possible there was an update, but if it was probably a tweak of something that had already been done. The one thing I would say, though, that we are seeing is a couple of our clients for whom we filed very thorough disavows recently saw really big jumps over the weekend. And they don't seem to be seasonal. So it's only a couple of sites. So it's too early for us to go out and say, oh, this was a link related or something to do with link trust, update.
Right.
But I think that's a possibility that's what's happening.
Excellent. Excellent. We've talked about disavows on the show previous, and you're a huge proponent of disavowing regularly as is appropriate. Obviously not disavowing for disavowing's sake. But we're in that new space where it used to be argued that you'd only disavow when something was core toxic to your site, but it's a regular conversation that we're having with Google, and Google's loving that type of data coming from your site, right?
Well, that's something we could talk about a lot, right?
Yeah, all right.
Whether we're feeding into, some people believe that when you disavow, you're feeding into Google's machine learning algorithms. Mm-hmm. Google has denied that. So, and I honestly don't think that that's what's happening, just because there's so much bad data in people's disavows. People disavow Google themselves. They disavow their own sites. Like, people do a lot of bad stuff with their disavow files. And Google was taking all of that information and like saying, oh, a bunch of people disavowed this domain, so it must be bad. I don't think it's going in that direction. Mm-hmm. We've been doing disavows for sites that have a very strong history of building links that manipulate Google. And so in the past, we used to do disavowing for sites that had ultra spammy links. Like if you had done a whole bunch of directory listings and stuff like that. I still do that now, but the types of links that we're mostly concerned about, because I think a lot of those spammy directory links, Google just ignores them now. But the ones that seem to be really working are when people have been going rampant with things like guest posting, even paying for links, just things that actually do move the needle. We've been seeing that, if we can disavow some of those activities in the past, that often with these core updates, all of a sudden they see big jumps up. Now, it's very tricky, though, to say that it's completely because of the disavow, because it's rare that we do just a disavow and improve other quality aspects of the site as well. But yeah, so there's still room for disavowing these days. I think a lot of sites do not need to disavow. But if you have a history of, if you hired an SEO company that you're just kind of iffy about the types of links that they made for you, and they're links that were made as opposed to going out and trying to get other people to truly recommend your company, then you might see some benefit from disavowing, provided you do it properly. Absolutely.
Yeah. Something as a sidebar note, I actually came across a link just recently that was a Fortnite V-Buck link that showed up in one of our sites, and I don't know if you've come across those before, but I mean it's just a PNG image out there floating in white space, but it's also a quick redirect over to some garbage sites out there. But they do pop up every once in a while, and that's just scrubbing the hull of barnacles that you should be doing on a regular basis. But you're absolutely right. Is that disavow? It's tough to do a disavow experiment because you are doing a number of things to be able to improve a site regularly. You just don't have that one variable to look at. So,
have you seen the Dejan SEO?
Yes. Yeah.
His penalty. I mean, that's and I don't know if you heard, but the penalty got lifted. So that's an interesting situation, right? Because that's a situation where Dejan SEO is a marketing company, an SEO company, and they actually received a manual action on their website. And so a bunch of us took a look. I didn't look into it in great detail. And then what he did was actually move their site. They were planning to move it to a new domain anyways, which meant that a lot of the pages on the old site were now 404s, which meant they'd essentially removed all the links pointing to those. We won't know what the actual culprit was. But I think the point is that Google is getting better and better at finding things where they're saying, look, these links that used to be helping your rankings really aren't natural recommendations for your site. And in Dejan's case, I personally think that the links that were the issue were, he did a lot of experiments that were really, really cool. I mean, they were great for the SEO community, but I think a lot of them resulted in links that actually caused him to rank better. So yeah, I mean, I think we still need to be paying a lot of attention to links these days and the quality of the links that we're getting.
Last note on Dejan. So you said that was actually lifted. When was it lifted? Was it this weekend?
I think it was this morning. Could have been yesterday, possibly. I read about it this morning, though. Yeah, and so we'll never know what the culprit was.
I did catch your.
Right? Because in the past, like if I looked at a link profile for a site that was penalized manually, it's almost always immediately obvious to say, oh yeah, you've been doing this, this, and this.
Right.
It wasn't immediately obvious, which tells us that when Google gives out manual actions, it's because there's something that's working that their algorithms are not able to combat. And so we should be paying attention to this situation, because whatever it was, and I have my theories, other people have their theories on what it was that caused that site to be penalized. That's something that probably Google will start working on algorithmically. And so, when we get these penalties, that's one of the reasons why I pay close attention to sites that have been penalized, because that tells us, oh, Google has caught on to this that they think is a link scheme, and they can't deal with it algorithmically. So let's pay attention to what they are actually going after.
But what you're talking about, it was actually getting links from these experiment blogs and content that are out there. That's actually even next level stuff, because it's not the direct spammy link or the direct comment link that as of years gone by that are trash. But he was actually in the space in a kind of a sideways look at content, providing content, getting a heck of a lot of inbound links from SEO firms or blog content, what have you. That's even trickier, because that means that Google's paying attention to that type of publicity inside of a particular industry, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and this is the thing. I mean, so we all have different theories on what happened here, but I think what happened, and Dan from Dejan SEO will be fine with me sharing this, because he was very public about what was going on. But he had a PDF on his website that was actually lifted from Stanford University, and which is, I mean, that's fine. I probably have stuff on my website that's not original to my website. The thing is, though, that he used it as an experiment for something he calls link inversion. And it get kind of complicated, but the idea was, his website had very high page rank, and that PDF actually started getting the links from people who wanted to link to Stanford, not to an SEO company. They just wanted to recommend this publication. And then it was getting links from a whole bunch of SEO companies, all in a very short period of time, in a way that looked to me like they could have been paid links. Now, Dan says they're not, and I do believe him that they're not. But I think that could have looked to the web spam team like, wait a second, there's something going on here. But that's scary if I'm wrong, like if this really was kind of naturally earned, and these marketing companies were linking out to this because it truly was something they wanted to quote, it was a study about marketing, that shouldn't cause a penalty, right? So either I'm wrong, or Google is finding something. I think maybe Dan had many other experiments on the site of that nature.
Got it.
That's probably the issue. But the point is, that's kind of scary, because you wonder what else is Google going after, and are there things that I thought was natural that maybe Google is going to start to discount? I don't know. It's a very interesting situation for sure.
Absolutely, it's very interesting that links have just jumped back. Well, it's because of EAT, obviously, and the authority and trust factors that these links represent. And to the final article here on our news section here over at Search Engine Journal, John Mueller from Google is asked about links and EAT, and it was asked just recently about the value of the inbound links for establishing a website's expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. EAT has been encouraged by Googlers as something web publishers should cultivate. Right. So John actually, at the end of this particular thread of information, he did say something a bit more abstract. We don't have any explicit information in regards to what you need to do there, as they were talking about external links and how much value EAT ties into links. But it's all around the same thing, right? It's about another factor. It's not just the quantity or the quality anymore. It's about that next factor of the authority that is engendered in a single link. What do you think about that article that was written up on Search Engine Journal?
Yeah, I didn't fully understand the point of the article, because Google has very clear, if you remember, I think we might have talked about this last time we talked, there was a white paper that Google put out about a guide on how they fight disinformation, how they fight fake news. And there's a line in that guide that talks about EAT, mentions that it's expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness. And then it has different bullet points under there that explain components of EAT. And the very first thing, I don't have the exact words in front of me Although I tweet. Oh, there we go.
I got it right here.
Okay, there we go.
You literally tweeted it about 50, 60 minutes ago.
Yeah, and I forgot what it said.
It says Google algorithms identify signals about pages that correlate with trustworthiness and authoritativeness. The best known of these signals is PageRank, which uses links on the web to understand authoritativeness. That's from that white paper itself, right?
Exactly. So here's Google themselves saying that a big component of authoritativeness and trustworthiness is PageRank, which we know is primarily all about links. And authoritativeness, I think, was no surprise to anyone because that's what PageRank has always been. You know, if CNN.com writes a story about SEO and links to me, that's a really good link that I would like to get. You know, provided it was a followed link, or even if it isn't, you know, that speaks to entities, and it can still speak to my EAT. Right. PageRank is correlated to authoritativeness. I think what a lot of people don't understand is this idea of trustworthiness. And I think a lot of that has to do with the quality of your link profile. And that can be, in my opinion, one factor that can make Google maybe not trust your site. So let's say you're a medical site and Google really wants to know that they can trust that then when they send people to your site, they're not going to be deceived, they're not going to be scammed, you know, things like that. And then they want to see, do other authorities in medical topics consider you an authority? And that via links. The Quality Raters Guidelines talk all over the place about, do other experts consider you an expert? That's links. You know, so I think links are a huge component of EAT. And so to say that they're not, I don't get that. It's they're definitely related. I mean, then that's what Google's document tells us.
And they're more powerful than ever before. And you have to, in any online marketing strategy, you have to be paying attention and understand what your profile is really conveying. We're certainly going to unpack that here in a second. But that's the news for this week. And yeah, literally, you contributed 50 minutes ago on that. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more of our content, or especially more of this week's featured guest, including a full-length interview, head on over to YouTube and search for Edge of the Web. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell if you want to see digital marketing news as it happens.